What's up, y'all? How's it going? Mike here to recap session 7 of the Astoria campaign diary. It is currently Sunday, and so we'll be playing session 8 tonight. But I wanted to get this little recap in before the next session rolls around here in a few hours. So, if it looks like I just woke up, it's because I did. But there ain't no time to rest when you got D&D to play, baby. As we pick up in session 7, wakes up on a bright, fresh, crisp morning in Wyvern at the Land's Inn Tavern, where they are still nursing some bruises from the big bar brawl that had happened the night before. They come downstairs and they see that Pickle is in good spirits. He's cleaning up, he's cooking some eggs and bacon for everybody, and the party is kind of discussing what they're going to do for the day. They have this looming situation off in the east across the desert that they've been kind of hinting at investigating, the human trafficking that they've already run into another caravan. So they know this isn't a one-off situation. But they also are looking for weapon upgrades. Gaston really wants to upgrade his Warhammer. He's talked to Boris, and Pax is interested in some upgrades as well. They're level 4 at this point, so they're really starting to try. They felt out their weapons. They're starting to want something a little better. So they don't really have the gold for it, but like Boris had told them previously, that there's this place called Wyvern's Peak, and out in the desert, there's this mineral called duranium, and that's what he uses to create these like super sturdy, very sharp or unbreakable +1 magic weapons. So they're thinking about this kind of side quest to go try to find some of this material so they can get upgrades. While they're all downstairs discussing these options, Mateo notices that something weird is going on with his satchel, his bag that he carries around. He notices that there's like a little bit of smoke kind of billowing out from inside the bag. He quickly kind of puts it to his side and looks inside of it, and he sees that book that he had gotten from the general store is literally smoking. Like smoke is coming out of the cracks in the pages. So he kind of tries to play it cool, and he's like, hey, I forgot something upstairs, 1 second. He runs upstairs and goes back into his room and pulls this book out. And sure enough, like smoke is just kind of like billowing out like a fog machine. And he opens it up, and as he does, like all the text in this pretty mundane book before is like dissipating into smoke and just floating off into the air. He kind of stares at it a little baffled for a second, and then suddenly it flips back to the first page magically, and like a magical ink that kind of like sparkles, it like glitters as it goes across the page and then dries. There's just one solid line and an X next to it, as if to be requesting a signature. Mateo doesn't really know how or if you can communicate this thing, so he tries, and he says, "What do you want?" And on the other page, that script, almost like written by a magic hand, says, "What do you desire most?" And Mateo thinks about it for a second and decides to be honest, and he says, "I want to be reunited with my family. I want my family back," because of this tragedy that had happened to him that basically sent him off spiraling into this entire situation. There's a brief moment, and the book says, whoever's writing in this book says, "I can give you that. Just basically you gotta sign on the dotted line," right? He goes ahead and decides to sign it. Whoever he made this pact with, he's not sure exactly who it is, but he signs the book, the pact is made, the ink dries, and the book, boom, slams shut, and that's it. So Mateo, I don't know if the gravity of what's going on is sunk in, but he puts the book away. It's still early morning. He runs back downstairs. I think Pax notices that there's something going on for sure with Mateo, and he asks him about it, but Mateo just brushes it off. Pax pushes it a little bit, but not too much. He kind of is like, "Whatever, dude. We got shit to do today, so let's get going." So the party goes to the general store, and they gather up some supplies for Wyvern's Peak. They decided that they want to try to get this duranium so they can upgrade their weapons, and they're going to need climbing supplies if they want to successfully climb this, or at least be able to reasonably climb it. Pickle told them it's like a pretty sheer mountain pretty sheer rock formation. So if you want to get up there to where the good stuff is at, you're gonna have to have some climbing material. So they go and buy a bunch of stuff. They spend like 300 gold on materials, and then decide that they need some horses. So they're heading to the stables, and along the way they run into Annie, who's just coming back from a goblin raid from the night before with her posse, and Pax is like in love with her immediately. He's trying to impress her, and she's, Annie's not some just like, pushover girl. Like she's a pretty tough gal. So I described her as being like Bonnie from Bonnie and Clyde. Pax asks Annie if she would come help them go to Wyvern's Peak, maybe try to take out this wyvern. Fails the persuasion check. She's not interested. She's not going to go risk her life for them to get new weapons. So she goes off. They get the material. They talk to Mando a little bit about the situation. He agrees to let them rent some horses. He thinks they're going to die, so he charges them a pretty big deposit for the horses, and if they come back, they'll get some of it back. But they get the horses, and Pax, Gaston, Mateo, and Meadow ride out of town towards Wyvern's Peak. Party heads out in the desert with their horses, and they eventually come up to Wyvern's Peak. Sure enough, it's this singular rock formation that's shooting up out of the otherwise flat desert. So there's really nothing to hide behind. But they stop about 200 feet away. I kind of asked the party, like, how close do you want to get? Right now, what you see is this looming spire in the distance, and just this huge leathery wyvern that is currently busy doing something like up in what looks to be like a rocky nest. It's got this huge horse carcass that it's taken from Ravon the night before, and it's kind of tearing it apart and just feeding on it. So they see this and they slowly approach. Now, Pax is the first to say, before we go in, let's devise a plan so that we don't just go in there and get whomped. So already they're being smart about this. They dismount from the horses 200 feet away from this rock formation, from Wyvern's Peak. Gaston, being a paladin, and he kind of has this class fantasy of being the one to kind of tank things, they suggest like a bait situation. So the idea is that they want to have Gaston serve as a distraction while the rest of the party gets into Wyvern's Peak and gets under some like rocky cover and stuff, and they can start making their way up the mountain, up the formation, while Gaston distracts it. Meadow casts Pass Without a Trace on the party, and everyone rolls their stealth checks. They get really high, even with some having a disadvantage, but they're out in the middle of the desert. There's really nowhere to hide. So once this wyvern turns around or finishes its meal, it's going to be back on the lookout. And if it sees them, it sees them. But if they make a loud noise or something on the way in, that might cause it to notice them more quickly. So take out the old D4, timer die, and we roll to see how many more rounds the wyvern's going to be focusing on eating this horse until it starts doing its patrol again. So I roll it. Yep, there it is. Got the 4. This is the best roll they could have gotten. They have 200 feet to cover before they even get to the rock formation. So they spend the first 3 rounds just dashing up. And they got really high stealth checks, so this thing's not noticing them. It's busy with the horses. They spend the last round getting into position. The rest of the party, besides Gaston, moves up onto this rock formation, and it kind of like shoots up. I made this super dope fucking terrain for this, and basically this is where you're coming up onto the formation, 100 feet tall, and every 20-30 feet or so there's kind of an overhang. So the rest of the party, while Gaston gets himself into position right here, the rest of the party gets up underneath this area to kind of have some cover and try to get the jump on this wyvern when it pops out. So they're all in position, and at this point Gaston pops the trap. He yells out, he's just like, "Come and get me!" And this thing like fucking turns around, sees Gaston. We're in the battle. Here we go. It jumps, leaps off, kind of takes flight, nosedives down towards him. Now he's standing way back at the edge of this peak, so its flight distance is 80, so it has to use its full dash to actually get to Gaston this round. Doesn't get an attack in, which is huge because of what my players do next. Mateo comes up and casts Cause Fear. He has this dread form that he has, and he goes into that, and when it pops, anything that can see him has to make a wisdom save against this fear. Sting any legendary resistances because I thought the stinger was just going to be way too deadly, but maybe I should have, because this thing gets feared by Mateo and is unable to beat the wisdom save. So basically this gives it disadvantage on all attacks as long as he's in with line of sight. And right after that, Gaston gives a compelled duel, forces the Wyvern to stay within 30 feet of Gaston at all times. So they've literally, right off the bat, unfortunately for me, stun locked this Wyvern in place in a 30-foot bubble around Gaston. It can't get out of line of sight of Mateo, and it can't leave Gaston's area. So it's hitting with disadvantage, and it can basically only attack Gaston, who has a super high AC. So this is the situation here now, and it's just trying to get a stinger attack in. Up underneath the rock formation, everyone's staying out of the 30-foot range. Meadow she looks around to see if she can find any way up. Rolls a perception check. She finds a secret entrance inside of the middle part, the main trunk of this rock formation. She peeks inside. She hears the sounds of a bunch of giant skittering roaches inside, and it looks like it goes up like a chimney. Pax doesn't want anything to do with this. He pulls out all the rations he still has in his bag. He's got 9 days worth of rations and a torch. He lights the torch, throws all of his rations in paper, food and everything, and just lights it on fire. So what's inside of this thing are rust monsters. These things are CR 1/2, so 1 or 2 of them aren't bad, but if there's a bunch of them, it could be a big problem, especially if you're wearing metal, because rust monsters eat metal, baby. They eat your armor and they eat your weapon. So I rolled 2d6 to see how many were in here. Rolled it up, and I got a 9, okay? So there's 9 rust monsters inside of this chimney. But Pax pulls off this pretty genius move to try to smoke them out, or give them inhalation death, suffocate them. So I said, Pax, okay, go ahead and roll a d6. We'll see how many of these things the smoke just drops right off the bat. Rolls a 3. So 3 of these things die immediately. So from 9, we go down to 6. All right, so the rust monsters, with 6 of them left, 3 of them go out the top of the chimney, 3 of them run out the bottom, and they immediately go towards Pax because he's the nearest one wearing metal. The other 3 up top begin making their way down towards Gaston, who is a good distance away, so they've got a few rounds before they're going to get to him. But Pax begins engaging these things, and immediately, as soon as he hits it, he sees that his halberd begins to rust. These are permanent damage to your weapon. So he takes, every time he hits this thing, he gets a -1. Every time it hits him, -1 to AC. The battle's kind of going like this. There's not a super ton of movement, but the action is really high and very exciting. And Gaston gets 1 or 2 bite hits in on him. He's blocking almost every hit. And this thing cannot break Mateo's fear, and it can't escape this bubble. Finally, after round, it finally happens. The Wyvern lands a stinger attack on Gaston. Now, the stinger doesn't hurt so bad. It's the poison that you got to worry about. Gaston rolls a Constitution saving throw against the poison, and he fails it. This means that the stinger is now doing 7d6 poison damage to Gaston. That's 7 dice. So we roll it. It's 36. It drops Gaston immediately. And Gaston goes down with his turn being next. So he has to roll a death saving throw. He rolls it and gets a 9. So that's 1 fail. Now, normally in D&D, that's not a big deal because, you've got other players coming. They're going to be healing you up. They'll run over. You've got 3 death saves. That's a long time to kill in D&D. But there's one problem. These rust monsters at this point have come down from the top, the other three, and they are on Gaston at this point. And they don't care. They're not intelligent. They don't care if he's down or if he's up or if he's got one death save, if he's got two. It doesn't matter. They're trying to eat him. They're bugs, right? So I inform Gaston and the rest of the group that on the rust monster's turn, they are going to attack. And there's two of them that are still on Gaston trying to attack him. So if either one of these things hit, for those who don't know, if you're down in D&D and something hits you with a melee attack, first of all, it rolls with advantage. And second of all, if it hits, it's an automatic critical hit. That's 2 death save fails. If either one of these rust monsters hits Gaston, he's dead. So there's some things that offset the rust monster's advantage. So they actually end up with a straight roll, but there's 2 of them rolling. So I pull out my 2 d20s and one at a time, I begin to roll. The first d20 I roll an 18. Hits him, 2 death save fails. Gaston is no more. I begin to narrate the tragic end of Gaston. I'm getting ready to ask Rosner if he's got any last words or any final thoughts of poor Gaston and his untimely demise. And suddenly, I hear 2 words shouted out from the heavens. Hero coin. That's right. Pax has 1 hero coin, and he's going to use it on Gaston. I'm like, okay, well, this other rust monster still has to attack. So let's see if it hits, if it's even worth rolling your hero coin, okay? So it rolls, doesn't hit. So the hero coin comes into play. And you already know what happens. The hero coin saves the day, and Gaston is brought back from the brink of death and barely survives. Now, the fight's not over, but they have brought their friend back from literally being dead. And I'm almost unable to keep running the encounter at this point. It's so intense. So we continue the fight and goes back and forth. There's more stuff that happens. It's a very exciting battle, but they eventually do kill the Wyvern, and they make it out with all of their party members intact, if only just so. This is the very closest we've had anyone come to dying this entire campaign, and things are only getting more dangerous as they progress. So it was a super exciting moment at the table. Everyone took it very seriously, and it was magic. And I'm very happy that Gaston gets to continue his journey, and we'll see where the adventure goes from there. But all is not well. As soon as the Wyvern drops, its soul comes up out of its body, swirls through the air, and shoots into Mateo's bag. Pax sees this, and now he knows something is going on. He puts his foot down, and he's basically like, we're not going anywhere else until you tell me what's going on. I know something's going on. You were acting weird this morning. A freaking ghost just flew out of this Wyvern and flew into your bag. What's in your bag? Open your bag. Mateo's trying everything he can to avoid confrontation, but confrontation is here, baby. And he eventually empties out his bag, and he's like trying to pretend like the book's not a big deal. And Pax is like, I'm just going to go through everything. So he just starts going through all of his stuff. And eventually he gets to the book, flips the book open. He sees a signature, Mateo's signature on the first page. And then he flips it to the next page. And there's a perfect artistically drawn depiction of a Wyvern on the next page. Now, Mateo didn't know this was going to be a thing either. But Pax is like, you need to explain this right now. And he says this to Mateo. I don't care what it is that this is. I don't care if you are doing, I don't even care if you're taking the souls of creatures to feed your patron god. I don't care what it is. You can't be hiding this from us if we're going to be traveling together. We rely on each other. Our lives depend on each other. We have to be more open. This was a super fucking dope RP moment. I threw out hero coins to everyone. I probably should have just given them all to Pax because he freaking just ran this awesome RP moment. But everyone did participate in it too. So hero coins go out. Sometimes I fuck up, I get too excited, and I give everyone a hero coin. Oops. Oh well. So this moment happens, and everything's not peachy now, but they kind of a little bit of this dirt gets pulled out from under the rug. So they climb up the mountain. They climb up Wyvern's Peak. They mine out all the ore with the pickaxes and the climbing equipment that they bought, and they reach the top where they find 3 little baby wyverns. Someone does like a history check. I tell them a little bit how like wyverns have been known to be tamed from a young age, but like they're very, very like, it's much harder than taming a horse. We'll put it that way. And so they take one of these wyverns, and unfortunately they leave the other 2 up there to just, I guess, die of exposure. But they come back down the mountain and they head back to Ravon with the wyvern's head on Pax's back. Gaston has collected some of the wyvern's poison and got it into like these 3 vials. So this is some very powerful poison that will probably come into handy later. So they got the wyvern's head on their horse, and they ride back into town, and they are hailed as heroes when they arrive. This wyvern has been eating horses and cattle and stuff. This thing has been big trouble for Ravon. So when they come back into town, they are hailed as heroes. Everyone's cheering them as dragon slayers almost. Like, this isn't a full dragon, but this wyvern was no joke. So they get back into town, they get their weapons made, they kind of talk to Mando, they end up getting a reward for their troubles, and head to Boris, get their Pax and Gaston, get their new weapons made, and they head off to Land's End Tavern to try to find what Billy Bob Jr. has been up to, and that's where we end our session. I was trying to do a little tracking on how long this campaign in game has been, and I think I got that we're like on day 4. So it's kind of crazy how slow time moves in D&D, even though like months are going by in real life. So this is like the end of the 4th day. It's kind of like mid-afternoon at this point, and they're heading off to the tavern to decompress. And I think, Gaston, he almost died, so he was dead if not for that hero coin. So that was session 7, and tonight here in a few hours, 9:30, playing at 6. I'm just gonna be waiting, baby. I have session 8 coming at you. And that was it. For all the DMs out there, for all the GMs or future prospecting players who maybe want to be a GM one day, I think what I took away from this was something I've suspected for a long time and have slowly begun to realize is true, that balance is a lie. Balance is a false god, a carrot on a stick that in D&D, I think a lot of DMs get obsessed with over like crunching numbers and getting this perfectly balanced encounter. It ain't real, baby. It's an illusion. If there's a place called Wyvern's Peak and the party wants to go to Wyvern's Peak, there had better be a giant wyvern, and if the party is told that there's this deadly stinger that's the most potent poison in all of the world, that thing better have the most deadly stinger in all of the world. And just because they're not leveled high enough for this thing doesn't mean it should bring itself down. It can use the stinger every time, and it could drop them in one hit with this thing. That was kind of scary to me, but this was completely optional. They didn't have to go here. This is to get upgrades for weapons. So loot is the driving force for this. If the party goes to this place that exists in the world, doesn't matter what level they are, what is there needs to be there. Balance was out the window. I rolled 2d6 for the rust monsters. They're half a CR, and there were 6 of them, originally 9. But so you got 9 rust monsters, you got a wyvern. If you plug that into some encounter builder versus 4 level 4 characters, it's going to be like super deadly times 4 or 5 or something. But you can never underestimate the tactics of a smart party, of a party that works together well and knows how to synchronize their abilities. I don't even fault Wizards of the Coast for their CR system, their encounter system, to not work. You can't put a book out that's going to say this encounter will be the same difficulty for a party of 4 level 4 players who have never played D&D before and have no magic items and all just do their attack without doing any teamwork at all, versus a party of players who are cohesive, have a couple of items that they know how to use, know how to use tactics, know how to use cover, things like that. Those are two completely different groups, and it's going to be a different experience. So it confirmed to me that balance is something that you don't. Obviously, I'm not going to throw a giant red dragon in their path with nowhere to run, but you know, just as a DM, just be smart about it, you know, and let your world be real. Let it be dangerous. And you're going to get these moments only if you do that. This moment when Gaston went down and his life just laid in one roll, it failed. We had the hero coin, barely saved him with the other roll. It was crazy, dude. So those moments can only come if things are dangerous. And this was dangerous, but our party apparently is more dangerous when they want to be. All right, yeah, so that was session 7. Thanks for tuning in. I will be back at you with session 8, which we'll be playing tonight in a few hours. So stay tuned for that. And I'm super stoked to see where it goes. And that's all I got for you today. So y'all have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.